Imagine you plan a trip, a very key trip, important trip, you invest a lot of money into it, and once you start implementing the plan, things start to go wrong, unexpected events here and there. That means you missed the key part of planning, which is risk management. On the other hand, construction is known to be a risky business. So why? Basically because of the so many unknowns that are inherent in the construction management process, so many changes and unexpected events that can take place and eventually derail the project and eliminate the chances of its success. In the last session, we have touched on the subject of risk management in construction and explained why we should do risk management, should take it seriously, and why the number one function of a successful project manager would be to take ownership of risk management and do it proactively and focusing on it as long as a project is undergoing. Last session we also discussed risk management life cycle, if you like, which is risk identification, risk analysis, and risk response. Okay, in this session we're going to go through each of these three stages and explain and discuss why do they exist and what can be done to address the three phases of risk management life cycle, if you like, effectively. So a project usually starts with an organization that has implemented previous projects. So it's very important here to start not from scratch, but start with the lessons learned from previous projects, also known as part of the organizational process assets. So over here we start with the lessons learned from previous projects, and then move on to the first part, which is risk identification. Risk identification, we sit together, the key stakeholders of the project manager and key stakeholders, they sit together and try to imagine what events can take place during the course of the project and can affect the project significantly, whether positive events or negative events. The focus is usually on the negative events, I mean the bad events that can derail the project or prevent it from achieving its objective and can delay it and probably cause also loss of money or reputation. So in risk identification part, we construct something that's called risk register, and the risk register is thus a long list of potential risk items. These potential risk items are usually identified through brainstorming sessions and expert judgment. At this stage, we don't rule out any idea coming from any direction, but then we start to really think about the most effective or the most likely events that can take place, and just they complete the list accordingly. And that takes us to the next step, which is risk analysis. Risk analysis is about looking into the identified risks under risk identification and do qualitative and quantitative analysis of each and every such item. Qualitatives means the nature of such event and what can make it happen, or what's likely to make it happen, and what impact can it have on the project. And the qualitative and the quantitative analysis will look into the time and cost impact of the risk item. In this stage also we talk about probability and impact of each and every risk item, what's probability of its occurrence is 10%, 50%, 80%, the likelihood that it will actually happen, and the impact in terms of dollars and terms of money, of time. So what's the likely cost and time impact of these risky events in case they actually realize? The third and last step, which is risk response. Under risk response, we have a plan to respond to each and every risk item, and we figure out if this risk item realizes along with its expected or predicted time cost impact. So how can we best respond to it? There are several ways to respond to risks. Commonly, the risk avoidance. So we see what we can do to avoid this risk, prevent it from happening in the first place. Or risk mitigation means that we try to just to reduce its impact and just control its impact, and eventually risk transfer. So if we really cannot manage this risk if it happens or when it happens, so it would make sense just to transfer this risk to a third party that can actually manage it on our behalf. The risk identification, I mean the risk register created your risk identification can actually vary. Some items on the risk register maybe can disappear or just along the time, or deemed to be unlikely to happen. Therefore, just take it off the list. Or new risks also can appear and during the course of the project, and these need to be added immediately to the risk register and just go through the process of risk analysis and risk response. When the project is concluded, or when the risk is actually, a risk item is concluded, is done as passed, so we create a lessons learned item or effort or report that can be used even in the same project if this risk comes again, or in future projects of the organization. The whole thing here is governed by the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, or Deming cycle, Plan, Do, Check, Act. So it is actually a dynamic process, not actually static. It's always alive and always dynamic, always changing as long as the project is underway. To recap, the risk identification model consists of three parts. Risk management model consists of three parts: risk identification, risk analysis, and risk response, as discussed. And the outcome of these three stages, or life cycle, if you like, of a risk event should be actually archived or saved into the organization lessons learned to be used or reused actually in the same project or in previous projects. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions now or in the future, in the next couple of days, so feel free to contact me directly, and I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to see you actually sharing your own experience or views on the topic of construction risk management, and we can actually have a short discussion in the next session about the feedback I'm going to receive from you in the next couple of days before the next session. Thank you very much indeed, and all the best. I encourage you at the end, please, to try to work together in groups, communicate which is other, exchange your experience and views, and I'll be part of this discussion. Also, feel free to contact me in case you have any questions or require any clarification. Thank you very much, and all the best.